Do success and pleasure always have to be opposite? Can they happen at the same time? How do we allow both of these things to exist and have a place in our very, very busy, overwhelmed life? We're talking about that today. I'm Dr. Diane, your board-certified sexologist and libido doc. And please remember, before we get into all of this information, that you can go and download my free ebook, 5 Steps to Mind-Blowing Orgasms and Romance, 5 Easy Steps, at hotterlife.com. So everything we're talking about today around pleasure and success and ways to incorporate more pleasure in your life while still having higher levels of success, you can find some easy steps in there to implement into your life. So listen to me here, because if you're in this world of, wow, I can't have pleasure in my life and be successful at that same time, I really hope to break down that paradigm for you today. Unfortunately, because of culture, because of our society, because of what we've been taught, there's so many times we have belief systems that unless we are challenging them, we live our life according to them and just think they're true. Right? We see this with monogamy. We see this in long-term and not relationships where people think that just because they're in a long-term relationship, the sex is supposed to get worse. And the sex frequency, the sex quality, all of that, many times people think in longevity that the sex gets worse. And so people enter into these relationships for stability, for security, for a lot of really amazing reasons. But what we don't realize is we can have those things and we can also be having the best sex of our lives and better and better and better longer in our relationship. Think about that. And then I'm going to get to the heart of today's lecture, the heart of today's topic in this video around success and pleasure and why we can have them both and how this actually works, and some research that I want to share with you on this topic as well. So where else in life, when we're talking about long-term, and I'm talking about this to help break down beliefs, where else in life do we practice something over and over and over and over again and get worse at it? So when we're saying, oh, we're going to have sex with the same person over and over and over again, and it's going to get worse, you can see that that does not match with basically anything in life that we practice over and over again. Now, the difference there is we are creatures of habit, right? We are creatures of habit. And as creatures of habit, what people often do in long-term relationships is they tend to have sex the same way. And it's analogous to say if you're practicing an instrument, let's say you're learning a guitar, and initially you learn the G chord, the C chord, and the D chord. And you play them over and over and over again. And first they're really exciting. And you practice them, and you practice them, and you practice them. And eventually, if you practice them enough, you're going to get really good at those 3 chords, but you're also going to get bored. And this is often what happens in long-term monogamy, is that people get into their habits and they practice the same 3 chords, the same 3 positions, the same 3 ways of doing things over and over and over again. So of course, just like anything else, of course, if we practice the same thing over and over and over again, it's going to lose its luster. It's going to lose its excitement. It might not feel as exciting and interesting, right? But what happens with anything else? Like what happens with the guitar if we learn different finger picking methods, if we learn different chords, if we learn different songs, right? It starts to build and build and build and build and get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And the same thing happens with sex if we actually take a moment and take some time to get out of that habit, to play different chords with our partner in our sex lives. So in order to do so, remember, you can always go to mysexdoc.com to download my yes, no, maybe checklist to find new ideas and to stimulate new ideas of how you can bring more novelty and excitement into your partnership. So that's at mysexdoc.com. Now, in addition to that, back to our main purpose of this video, which is, can we have success and pleasure all at the same time? So here's the deal. If we look at research on things like meditation, one of the things we find is that when people take time to meditate, which takes them out of their busy day, which may seem like they're less efficient because all of a sudden they're spending their time doing something besides work. And I say this, you guys, with running multiple businesses, with having multiple doctorates and certifications, I am very, very, very into working very hard. I'm also very into how can I be as most efficient as possible. And pleasure is a key thing. So with meditation, when people take time to go do this, one of the things that they find is that it actually is helping to change their brain so that then when they come back to the work, they are more efficient. And with pleasure, we do see with all of the chemical cocktails that are happening, the level of balance of stress. One of the things that engaging in pleasure does is it helps our brain to be more creative. So if we have a problem at work, if we have a problem in life that we're trying to solve, and we bring a pleasure practice into it, and we set our problem aside, and we are fully in our body, and we're fully with ourselves, and we're fully with a partner, it is amazing how many times I see over and over again when we then go enter the work again, we have new ideas of how to solve things. You see, when our brain is pumping out the stress hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, our brain gets locked into this fight or flight and it loses its creativity in many ways. We get linear, very linear thinking. And we lose our ability oftentimes to bring in other parts of our brain that might be able to see the problem differently. When we actually engage in activities that are allowing ourselves to step out of that, to get more in the flow state. That flow state is when we are so deeply present to what's happening, which we can't really experience the depths of pleasure without being deeply present. And when we do that, what winds up happening is we allow more creative insights to come in. So I am not saying when I say we can have success and pleasure at the same time, I'm not saying that this is such a hedonistic society that we just live by the whims of our pleasure and we never do the hard work. Of course we work. I work very, 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 very hard. But what I am saying is when we bring in that pleasure, what we're doing is we're giving our brain an opportunity to get into that flow state and to not only experience all of the chemicals that happen there, all of the closeness and connection we feel with ourselves or our partner, but we are also then allowing ourselves to think oftentimes about problems in different ways. So this whole belief, just like sex has to get worse with the length of a relationship, that whole belief is similar to this belief of like we can't have both pleasure and success. Now, again, I'm not saying that this means we're not ever working hard. We're not in a pleasure state 100% of the time, although I do like working in a way where taking on new projects and doing new things, we get to ask, like, is this going to be a pleasure to do? Am I going to love working with this client? Is this a partnership I want? Is this going to bring me joy, right? I do think like that lens of looking at business and jobs is important. And of course, sometimes, anytime we work, we have to do things that are hard that may not be the most pleasurable, things to do. So all of that being said, when we bring pleasure in, we have the bigger ability to lower our stress because we see that's what happens. Our stress hormone can actually go down, can actually re-regulate, and approach problems differently, and approach problems from a way of activating more parts of our brain. So I deeply feel that pleasure is not just about desire, but something we require for longevity, something we require for our health, something we require for hormonal balance, and something we require for maximizing our success in the world. So again, you want 5 easy steps on how to do this, on how to enhance pleasure in your life, go get my free ebook at hotterlife.com. Make sure you download the yes, no, maybe checklist at mysexdoc.com, and I'll see you all real soon. Thanks for joining.